I watch Wild Goose on here, and he kind of gives me that spark to keep doing.
I'm not gonna front nobody. I am not very good at advice. I'm just not. I'm pretty well only good for dumb jokes and one-liners and stuff like that. But I'm okay at telling stories sometimes. Sorry, it's been a long day. It's nearly 1 a.m. right now. I've been in a pretty solid pull for the last last couple days. But I'm okay at telling stories sometimes. And this old boy, he's looking for a little bit of spark to keep going and wrenching. And I guess I could probably tell you a story that might help. Once upon a time, in a small town in Indiana, back then I'm not even sure. It was the 50s. I'm not sure that they even had a stop sign in that town. But there was a family of 14 that lived there. Long story short, their old man, there's 12 kids of them, wife, dad, 12 kids, but the old man ran off, right? And left mom with 12 kids and this, that, and the other. Well, eventually there wasn't a whole lot of food to go around. And there's this one boy that was in this family, and he ran away from home at the age of 14. He moved up to the big city, or it was supposedly big then. It's a lot bigger now. And moved in with his older brothers and started working on plaster. He did plaster for a living. And I've still got his plaster tools to prove it. But one day after he grew up a little bit and he did some time in the army and he got married and everything, he decided that he didn't want to do plaster work no more. And he was about sick and tired of that. For some reason, he decided driving truck, that was it. That was of all forms of driving truck too. Local farm pickup milk. That was what he wanted to do, and he set his mind to it, and that's what he wanted to do, and he went and did it. He bought a route for the local company by the name of Burger Dairy. Got himself a truck. His first truck was a straight truck. It was a single axle, 2-speed rear end industrial V6 GMC with a 5-speed. I want to talk about roughing it. That was roughing it. But this dumb son of a bitch, he drove that truck for, not that truck specifically, but he drove that truck for a while. But he drove his routes and drove truck for close to 30 years. And that was just owning his own shit. He drove even then after that a couple years ago. After a couple years after, he tried to retire because he couldn't retire. Sitting around fishing all the time just wasn't for him, apparently. But after driving for close to 30 years, he kind of became a local legend of sorts. And some of the old fuckers around here, they still talk about him a bit every now and again. They got stories like Keith likes to talk about the time that he bailed him out after he after he rolled his truck over down in Tippy, which is ironic, if you will. Keith let him borrow his rig, and he went and pumped off the milk and this, that, and the other with another truck. And sometimes Kevin likes to tell the story about how he had a motor go down one time, and this guy he pulled that truck in his shop, and they rebuilt that big cam in that truck overnight. What the fuck? That was back when everything was mechanical and straightforward, and I guess that motor at the time was pretty new, so they didn't do counterbores or anything like that, but they overhauled a big cam in a night, which is fucking ridiculous. This man raised up 3 kids, and he had himself a wife. Of those 3 kids, 2 of them were twins. And one of those twins was my mother. This guy, his name was Bobby Cash. That was the CB handle and the nickname that them milk truck drivers gave him. Because apparently, Bobby Cash always had a wad of cash on him. Must have been all the money he had in the world, because according to my mother, they grew up dirt floor poor. This July 16th, it'll be 10 years since Bobby Cash has died. And I look up to that man like he's God. I wanted to be just like my grandfather when I grew up. And if I could ever be a quarter of the man that he was, I'd be doing just fine in life. Good fucking God. But I wanted to be just like that man. I wanted to be just like him. That's the whole reason I ever started doing this shit. Now, I didn't get started in trucks right away. In fact, my first job was putting together lawnmowers, believe it or not. I was 16 years old, putting together lawnmowers for the local lawn and garden company, which ironically is the same place that my stepdad started. Like when he got started into wrenching and stuff like that, my stepdad, his first job was the same place at the age of 16. Just like me, he got his driver's license and he got a job there. Great. After that, I worked on cars. I worked my way up to working on rigs, is what I'm saying here. But my grandfather's the whole reason I wanted to start working on these piles of junk in the first place. Now, granted, I have found a lot of other reasons to continue wrenching other than just old Bobby Cash. I have made so many friends doing this. Not even just coworkers, people across the United States, people local to me, people regionally. I mean, I'm on the phone with buddies from Ohio, Michigan, California, this, that, the other, all the time. We're sharing stories, we're passing information back and forth, this, that, and the other. It's kind of as cheesy as it sounds, but it feels like and acts like a brotherhood, if you will. And it's nice. Not to say that they're all men either, because there's a lot of gal mechanics out there that are fucking awesome, and I love talking with them. In wrenching, I've found a sense of accomplishment that I couldn't find anywhere else before. You know, before I was wrenching, I was a musician, believe it or not. My dad taught me how to play a rock beat on his drum kit at the age of 4 years old, and I did that shit all the way up until I was 18, decided I was done with it. That was too much. I was over it. I have found a sense of relating, I guess, to not even, and I can't even totally relate in a way, but I have found a way to sort of see like the shit that my grandfather was going through back then, back when he was just trying to make it. Like both of these trucks that are in here right now. This is a Peterbilt 379. It's got a 5EK cat in it, 18 speed, 370 rears, the whole 9 yards. This Freightliner Classic. It's got a 6NZ in it, 13 speed truck, and I can't remember the rear end ratio in these, but set of Rockwell rears. Both of these trucks, just like my grandfather, this is what puts food on the table. This is the money maker. Both of these trucks are the whole reason that a family out there eats, you know. And I'm very fortunate and very lucky that these guys come here and trust me and my coworkers to make the repairs on them so that they can continue making money to be able to feed their families and stuff like that. I have found a way to not necessarily relate, but to see back to, you know, what my grandfather was doing back in those days. You know, when this truck this past winter broke a crank square in half, you know, that was a righteous repair bill. And funny enough, the guy that owns this truck used to unload my grandfather at that dairy that he'd unload at, and he's got stories as well about my grandfather. But I love this guy, you know, to death. He's a great man. But I can sort of see in his eyes, you know, when stuff like that happens, like, what's the next step in this, that, and the other. And kind of, it reminds me of my grandfather a little bit. But to sort of circle back, if you will, and this video is forever long because I'm long-winded all the time when I tell stories. I get burnt out too. I know sometimes on social media it doesn't look like that, but you guys don't see every facet of my life. I'm sorry. And I don't want it that way either. There's stuff that I like to keep private. But in those times where I sort of get into a slump, if you will, and I'm pinned down underneath a job or this, that, or the other, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, fuck, why the hell did I think this was a good idea to even do in the first place? What a dumb idea. Who would ever want to work on trucks? This is stupid. Yada, yada, yada. I always think back to, like, this sounds cheesy. I know it does. But, like, young me, I guess, and how I wanted to be nothing but my fucking grandfather. I wanted to be just like that motherfucker. You gotta find it. You gotta find that reason that you're even doing anything in the first place. I don't care what it is, you know. You got a wife and kids at home and you just gotta feed them. That's your reason. Go out there. That's your spark. You fucking love this shit and you're obsessed with it like I am. There's your spark. That's your reason. Go fucking wrench. And this goes for really anything, I guess, in life in general. You have to have a reason for doing it. And if you can't find a reason for doing it, do it because Bobby Cash would have wanted you to do it. I'll be lucky to go to purgatory. I'll be so dead lucky to go to purgatory. But I know that motherfucker's smiling down from heaven. And if you can't find a reason to wrench, Bobby Cash, I know, would be happy to be the reason that you wrench. If you can't find a reason to wrench, do it for Bobby Cash.